The expert may perhaps recognize the hand of a certain personality at work in the transactions of the great financier or speculator, a specific style and rhythm that characteristically distinguishes the actions of the one from those of another. However, we must first of all take into account what has yet to be demonstrated in the case of other phenomena, namely that in the case of extraordinarily large sums of money the purely quantitative character of money actually provides a place for a nuance of qualitative distinctiveness. The indifference, the refinement and banality that are peculiar to money that is constantly circulating do not affect, to the same extent, these rare and spectacular concentrations of immense fortunes in a single hand. It is also essential to point out here that money as a whole takes on a very distinctive character in specific monetary transactions, that is, when it does not function as a medium of exchange to other objects, but as the central content, as the object of a transaction sufficient to itself. Money is an end in itself in the purely bilateral financial operation, not only in the sense that it has suspended its qualities as a means, but also in the sense that it is, from the outset, the self-sufficient center of interest, which also develops its own distinctive norms and, at the same time, completely autonomous qualities and a corresponding technique. Under these circumstances in which money possesses its own coloring and specific qualifications, a personality may be expressed more readily in the management of this money than when it is the colorless means to altogether different ends. Most important of all in such a case is the fact that money requires a quite specific and actually highly developed technique, and only such a technique enables the personality to develop its own individual style. Only when the phenomena of a specific category emerges in such abundance and internal isolation that a special technique evolves to master them, only then does the material become so malleable and pliable that the individual is able to express his own style when handling it. The particular conditions of these cases in which a specific relationship between money and personality springs up, should not be interpreted as contradicting money's alleged function, namely the separation of having and being. This function presents itself from the point of view of utilization in the following way. As we have seen, what distinguishes property from instantaneous enjoyment is the guarantee that use in any direction and at any time can result from property. The fact of ownership of an object is equal to the sum total of all its uses and enjoyments. The form in which this fact appears at any particular moment is the guarantee for all future enjoyments, the certainty that no one else may use and enjoy this object without the consent of its owner. Under pre-legal conditions and also, naturally, in those areas within our civilization that lie outside any direct legal control, such a guarantee is secured only through the strength of the owner to protect his property. As soon as this strength diminishes, the owner can no longer exclude others from the enjoyment of what was hitherto his property, and it will be transferred without further ado to another person to whom it will belong, as long as his strength in turn serves to guarantee the exclusive use of the object. There is no need for such personal strength where laws do exist, inasmuch as the totality of owners guarantee to the owner permanent ownership and the exclusion of all others from such ownership. In this case we can say that property is the socially guaranteed potentiality for the exclusive enjoyment of an object. This concept of property is enhanced, as it were, if it is realized in terms of money. For if somebody owns money, he is assured by the constitution of the community not only of the possession of the money, but thereby of the possession of many other things as well. If the ownership of an object means only the possibility of some specific use of that object that the nature of this object permits, then the possession of money implies the possibility of the enjoyment of an indefinite number of objects. With regard to all other possessions, public order can only guarantee what the particular type of object is endowed with. The public order can guarantee to the landowner that nobody else is allowed to reap the fruits of his land, that he alone may till the soil or let it lie fallow, to the owner of the forest that he may cut timber and hunt game, etc. By minting money, however, the community guarantees to the owner of money that he can acquire grain, wood, game, etc., with his money. Money thus produces a higher potential of the general concept of property, a potential for which the specific character of any other type of property is already dissolved by law, and the money-owning individual is confronted with an infinite number of objects, the enjoyment of which is equally guaranteed by public order. This means that money alone, unlike one-sidedly determined objects, does not determine its further use and fructification. What applies to states, namely that they are preserved only by the same methods on which they were founded, in no way applies to money even though it is valid for many other possessions, particularly intellectual ones, and also for various possessions acquired by money, which can be preserved only by the very same interest that led to their acquisition in the first place. The complete independence of money from its origins and its eminently ahistorical character is projected in the complete indeterminacy of its use. Hence it seems to us completely unfounded and eccentric to imbue money with personal significance such as resulted from the Church's prohibition of interest. Even in the 16th century a merchant considered it a sin to practice usury with his own money though not with other people's money which he had borrowed. This distinction appears to be possible only if there exists an inner ethical relationship between money and personality as such. Yet the impossibility of understanding this distinction demonstrates the absence of such a relationship. Wherever such a relationship occurs nonetheless, it exists not in relation to money as a whole, but only with reference to differences in its quantity. It is true that the effect of other kinds of property on the owner and his effect on them is different depending upon their respective amounts, for example, in the case of land the difference between a small farm and a large estate. Yet even here a certain equality of interests and necessary talents exists through which the quality of what is possessed becomes the bond between the owner's possession and his existence. But wherever a definite connection exists between the person and the ownership of money, it is the sheer quantity of money itself that operates as the characteristic cause or effect, whereas in the case of other possessions mere quality is incidental to specific personal causes and effects. Only the possession of an enormous amount of money gives a decisive direction to the life of its owner which the wealthy person can hardly escape from. Otherwise, there are only very rare and awkward phenomena that illustrate the personality's direct relationship to money. It has been stated, for instance, that a miser as well as a spendthrift lies hidden in every human being. This means that every individual deviates from the purely average spending pattern of his cultural sphere both downwards as well as upwards. It is almost unavoidable that it appears to the individual, from his subjective sense of values, as if others spend too much or too little on certain items. The reason for this is obvious. The difference in the valuation of specific objects bought with money is, however, not the sole reason. In addition, the person's individual attitude towards money as such has to be considered. This comprises whether someone is inclined to spend a large amount of money at once or prefers a number of smaller expenditures, whether the gain of a large sum induces him to wastefulness or to greater economy, whether he is apt to go off the deep end in spending such that every expenditure psychologically facilitates the next one, or whether every purchase leaves behind it an inner obstruction so that a justified purchase is made only reluctantly. All these are individual differences rooted in the depths of the personality that become most apparent or appear at all only in a money economy. But here, too, the source of this expression lies in mere quantity. All these differences in behavior with regard to money only reflect a matter of degree, in complete contrast to the differences between personalities which we find in their various relationships to things and people. In general it remains true that any possession other than money places more definite demands upon the individual and exerts more definite effects upon him in such a way that it appears to the individual as a determination of or shackle upon his life. Only the possession of money provides complete freedom in both directions, at least up to a very remote and rarely attained point. For this reason, those professional classes whose productivity lies outside the economy proper have emerged only in the money economy, those concerned with specific intellectual activity such as teachers and literary people, artists and physicians, scholars and state officials. As long as a barter economy prevails there are only very few of them and then mostly on the basis of substantial land ownership. This is the reason why, during the Middle Ages, the Church, and to some extent the nobility, were the supporters of intellectual life. The rank of this category of professional people depends upon the uncompromising question that determines the whole value of their personalities.